Always. Yes. Okay, go ahead. Okay, great.
Well, good evening. Thank you for allowing us to be here. I know you're listening to a lot of the same stuff tonight, so we'll try to make this interesting for you. My name is Brian Bolick. I am a vice president with Pond Company and would be the principal in charge for providing these services should you select our firm. With me tonight is Michelle Alexander, and she'll be doing the bulk of our presentation. And Michelle runs our planning group for Pond. We also have Al Pond, who is our CEO and founder of the firm tonight, and then Kevin McCumber, who I'm sure you probably just heard from, with our teaming partner, Clark Patterson-Lee. Pond, if you've read the material or know anything about us, we are a 250-person firm based here in Atlanta. We're not a very small firm, and we're not a mega firm. We like to think we're just right, but we're large enough to provide the services that you need. We work not only all over Georgia, but we literally work all over the world. But we're not so big that we get caught up in a lot of bureaucracy that you might find in a larger organization. We really want to focus our presentation on what we feel is the value of our firm and our team. And while we'll be glad to answer any questions that you have about the fee portion, I know this is a value-based selection, so it's both fee and the services. We really want you to hear about what we can do for you. The fee is strictly a function of the number of employees for the most part. And being a new city, everyone is trying to estimate what you need. That can be adjusted. We can adjust our full-time equivalents, and that obviously is going to affect the pricing. But that's something that we'll be glad to discuss if you want. But really, we think that the value and the services that we can provide and the strength of our team is what you want. We'd like you to hear tonight. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michelle.
Hi there. I'm Michelle Alexander. I am the Director of Planning and Urban Design with Pond. I'm thrilled to be here tonight. I'm proud to be part of this at all. What you all are undergoing, you've been told, and you know yourselves from all the hard work that you've been doing and rolling up your sleeves. This is no small undertaking, and it's awesome for the region, and it's a great moment for all of the region to see how great government could be. My background a little bit is that I started off actually in public administration, and so in my 20s I got to work with a firm that helped local governments all over the world, like Poland. Imagine, Poland started off with a new constitution, and these local governments had no idea how do we set up a system. My love for files is embarrassing. So when you go to start up a new city, and your city clerk, for example, is the unsung hero, that's got to be the best friend of your community development department and your legal team. All of the folks that are trying to keep you out of trouble. I think most of the firms that have come before you have some experience with that, with doing public administration. We've set up shop and helped a lot of cities who started from nothing. So just to give you a sense of how we put the team together, and of course we wanted to work with Kevin to bring both the strengths of the code enforcement and the building inspections and the startup of a new city, a brand new city here in Georgia, so we can get the best of both worlds. So I think you're going to have the nuts and bolts. You're going to have folks who can set up the files, who can get your systems up and running. I'm going to talk about the bells and whistles. So I really think the city, I understand about Brookhaven, everything I know about Brookhaven is you want the bells and whistles. You demanded high quality of life. There was a reason you set out to become a city, and all of the efforts of your constituents to sweat and labor to get that overlay, and all the sweat and labor to every time the DeKalb Commission made a decision, make sure you follow our overlay. Make sure you are implementing our vision. And when I read the papers and followed and talked with friends and folks and investors in your community, people who live in Brookhaven, it wasn't about that one little pothole that y'all want fixed. It was about the overall look and feel of your community. Community Development Department is going to be It brings so many pieces together, and we're thrilled and grateful that you're letting us interview you in this, really interview with you and talk to you about this key function of your community. To back up a little bit with the bells and whistles parts of things. So we put together a proposal explaining to you we get management systems. One of the bells and whistles we want to bring with you is what we've learned with our federal clients and with other levels of government all over the world. We want to be a partner with you to build the most competitive city in the region. The region needs you to really figure it out. And one of the main things that government has is information. And information needs to be used, though. So a lot of our communities have what they call geographic information systems, ways to keep track of data. Think of all the stuff you asked from your community members. What's your building envelope? What's your square footage? How much water is running off? Blah, 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 blah. All in different silos. So the good governments are figuring out how to put that data into one place. The better governments are helping you make decisions not just about the cases that come to you every month. I want to rezone, I want a variance. As you make those decisions, lot by lot, parcel by parcel, the good governments are figuring out how to integrate that information. The better governments are figuring out how to not only manage the applicants coming in, but their own resources. And so what we proposed to you was that we can bring back to you what we've been giving our federal clients across the country and across the world, ways to make that the smartest data possible. So you're able to make decisions based on data and information, real-time data. It doesn't have to cost you a lot of money. You don't have to, I know you're going to have a vendor doing your IT and bringing the GIS, but it doesn't have to be that they have to start from scratch or make something. We've got the template for you. So we're asking that you let Pond build this with you. We've got it already, ready to go. We want to show it off with local governments. We've done this for some local governments already. That's one side of it, is on the data, because we understand your constituents are going to demand, and we know you've got some constituents who didn't necessarily want to be a government. And we know these are folks who are coming to your meetings, and they're just waiting and watching how you spend their money. The more you can show how those systems get back value to them and save you money and make better investment decisions, the more you can use this data, the smarter you're going to be, and the more you're going to have community ownership over every investment decision. That, again, those are nuts and bolts. This is data, and data isn't really very interesting to most people. So what I have behind me is just wallpaper. I did that on purpose. You know, we want to have a conversation and talk through you both the nuts and bolts of running a good shop, and we've done that. I've been a development director for several different sizes of cities, as well at the county level. Every person who works for Pond we have to use every bit of those staff people, because we can't just be an engineer over in the closet. The engineer has to talk to the planner, and the planner has to talk to the landscape architect. We're a small enough firm that we're constantly having to have many disciplines. Every one of our planners, I didn't realize it had a voice on there, so excuse me. This was just a video of some of the bells and whistles of some of the video capacities. If you want to be able to hit the mute for me, if we could just run it again as wallpaper. So every one of our staff, every one of the planners that we are proposing for you, they are not just planners. If you look at your diagram in the handout we gave you, we just wanted to leave some reminders. One, that we understand community development is about building community. You are going to have to not just build the environment, but as you do your planning work and your strategic planning, you're building community in that social sense, a sense of identity, a common vision, and you got to think, who's the firm that's going to really do that the best? Who's going to be the best at communicating your vision, translating across different people's perspectives? And so we have to have a team that, as you look at this little chart in here, this was in our proposal, the little chart with the little circles in there. Planners, of course, we all think we're so important. And the engineers will laugh and say, oh, you know, good little planner, you've got such a great vision. But you know what? I can't just be a planner. I have to know stormwater. I have to go to my boss, who's an engineer, and say, this is a beautiful picture. We have beautiful pictures, but can it be built? And you have to have departments that talk to each other. The engineering department with the planning department, they don't always want to do that. We have a special obligation, and that's what these little arrows are trying to show to you. that all of your planners need to have several specializations, and this is the team to do that. We don't let anyone in our doors. I don't hire one person who doesn't have several specialties. We've also got to be experts in communications and graphics, and that's another reason we wanted to put it together in this format, so that you can see how am I engaging something as boring as a setback into the graphic you see on the top. This is an overlay we've done for the College Bib corridor. We write these codes. We get into the geek squad moment of all these details, the public administration details and the legal details, but we bring it back to communicate it. As a new city, that's your focus. And as elected officials who have to prove yourselves, let us help you communicate. I know you're going to have a communications vendor as well. Let us help that communications vendor show off everything visually and graphically, all the decisions that you are making. Again, it's exciting to have a new city because you can show that government can be efficient, and we're going to help you be efficient with your data so you can make investment decisions, and then we can graphically explain why this sidewalk is going to be greater value than that sidewalk if you need to make that case, because we're going to use the data in a smart way. We're going to link with your tax assessor data. We're going to help you understand the revenue implications of your land development. So here we go. This firm, whoever you hire, has to manage your first comprehensive planning process. And during that process, we would recommend you let whoever does that really stick to the data and talk with, just like this little diagram says, it's got to have your finance department. What are the numbers? What's our healthy economic base to build the parks that your constituents are demanding? I know they're going to demand that of you. I know they're already demanding trails and amenities. How are you going to pay for it? Your comp plan needs to have can be a business map. It can be your strategic plan if you have the right firm who knows how to use all this data, not just on the finance, but on your public works. And so we end up having, if you have the right folks in that department, talking to all of these different silos, putting on different hats, and making the conversation so that you as elected officials are armed, and then we communicate it back however we need to. This is just a visual demonstration. You can see that some of that's electronically built up, but all that comes from data you already will have. And it's just a matter of packaging it. It doesn't have to cost $1 million. It can be pretty straightforward if you're smart about setting up those systems out of the gate. We look forward, if we can, in any other way. However you decide tonight, or through this process as you pick your teams, we hope we can be a resource to you. We work all around the region. Anything you need, it's really useful here in case studies, how other cities are doing things, and other cities around the country are doing things to be competitive cities. So we just encourage that whoever you pick both is smart with you about your land management, gets you the most mileage out of all that investment you're putting into this data. And then can also, from that data, communicate to your community. I know you've got a pretty demanding community. I work with cities like Roswell, their comprehensive plans, and Dunwoody and Johns Creek, and help start up cities who have a lot of expectations. And a lot of this is going to happen of how you can communicate it so that they have buy-in and they have ownership, and so that your department does what its job is. It's not just community development, it's building community. We really take that seriously. We really train so that folks know how to facilitate and build those bridges and have those conversations. I'm going to leave it at that because I know there's a short amount of time, and I know you probably have some questions, so we'd rather just leave it at that as some of our strengths and our bells and whistles.
Minutes too much of the portion.
Yeah.
Did your team do those 3D graphics?
All of this is from our team, yes,
Thank you.
sir.
You don't have to ask other people that question.
Staffing is going to change as we go through this process. Early on, it's going to be focused on startup and some of the technical stuff. Later on, we'll probably get into more comprehensive planning. How do you see that process evolving, and what do you see as your sort of evolving staffing levels and/or particular staff that you're going to have available for those different portions of the project, and also flexibility with regard to pricing for the different levels of services that we're going to need going forward?
Sure. Well, first of all, keeping track of those special projects, we'll be checking in with what is the council's priorities. You all represent the community, so you already have some priorities that you've been communicated by your constituents, and that will work through with your city manager what those priorities are. So you're going to have some special projects out of the gate. So in addition to setting up the overall systems, our administrative systems, how we're coordinating applications and those procedures, we're also going to see how do we work that workflow with any of your special projects. I always encourage our clients to exploit their consultants, because there are so many staff that I've worked with region. I look at my boss because we're the team that can potentially get exploited. But you want to get the most out of it. So if you have staff that can do 30% of it, that's going to cut what you need to bring any specialist in. The communication as time changes, as different projects come, our approach has really rigid discipline about our meetings and measuring performance, that we are measuring the volume and workload. That's how a firm like Pond or Clark Patterson Lee, that's the only way we can make money, is if we really know it takes 10 hours to do a plan review. Why is it taking you 15? The only reason we know how the day-to-day, how much time the day-to-day takes, so that we can measure out what the special projects are going to take. And I just really think if you have the kinds of team members that our team brings, where we have specialties, we don't have one degree, we all have 2 or 3 different disciplines, you can get more mileage out of your internal staff. And then if you do need to bring a specialist in, an external task order, we would be talk with the city manager to see if that's the council's will, where you want to put your emphasis.
I would add one other thing to that, too, is that understanding, as you said, we're going through different phases in the growth of these departments in these cities, and what you need on day 1 is not the same as you're going to need on day 100. And I think part of the benefit of the fact that we are headquartered and local here in a multidiscipline firm here with 100, 150 staff here gives us a lot of flexibility. We are the city engineers and we are the city planners for several cities in the region. And so we have those staff in our office who are providing those services for long-established cities. And so we easily can draw upon what we already have to supplement and augment whatever staff may be embedded in the city as it grows. And so it's not that we're going to have to go and rush and find someone or swap someone out. We have that capability and that capacity in our office. And I think that may be part of what you're asking, because it's going to make it much easier. And then I guess the final thing I would say to that is, because we are a multidisciplinary firm, even though these are planning services and planning review services, we have found so many times when we're working for a client that there may be a question that comes up in dealing with an applicant or an issue that is architectural in nature, that is structural in nature. And we have architects and engineers, we have fire protection engineers, we even are one of the top fueling design firms in the world. We have unique skill sets that we can draw upon, that if your firm is only focused on planning and so on, you may not have access to that without going and paying for it. So those are some of the, the term gets over.
We got a real limited time here. I got to get
Sure.
these questions in real fast. I don't
Absolutely.
want to cut you off.
No.
What's your philosophy on how you ensure that your staff and your planners through zoning and community development kind of deal with making sure they don't, their own beliefs and biases on community development and zoning don't get substituted for the desires of the taxpayer and the voters and the council?
Sure. So the biggest part is, as a team, we meet weekly to review how people are evaluating it. Everyone's in their cube. They have a set of plans. They're cranking through, and they're interpreting your codes on a daily basis. Your future it stands or falls on staff being able to translate your vision. So it's really up to your leadership to quiz. The experience I've had is we quiz. How did you evaluate it? How did you evaluate it? Now what's the code say? And why are we having any differences? It is somewhat subjective. These are individuals. But as long as we're constantly communicating internally, and again, rigid meetings, not to meeting people to death, but those meetings help us check back. What did council say? What was the interpretation? And if I have a question, if I have 4 different people interpreting it differently, something's wrong with that code. I got to come to the city manager. Can we get on the agenda and check with council what the will is?
Max, I have a very specific question to this. You were very excited about saying what sets you aside from a lot of the other vendors is this template that you have that was derived from your federal project.
Yes, sir.
Can you share with us what this is about?
Yeah. I'd love to give maybe just a little
you
example.
You have about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. If you can get the other...
you can just verbalize it.
So the template has to do with the organization of this data. So a lot of your city officials and your local governments have what they call these geographic information systems. Well, as you become more sophisticated and as you start up and you have a data, your IT folks will, because you're a new city, they're going to hopefully be smart enough to have all of the different databases linked together already. Okay. So you're already ahead of some folks who might need our services to even link. What's the fees that we're collecting? What's the sewer plan and the pipes in the sewers? What is the land development? What's the building envelope? All of those are little bits of data, and they may be in all different places. So how do we wrap it together? For example, so in Huntsville, for the Department of Defense, they have 128 different bases, over 100 different bases that each have their own little sets of data. And they had us come in, and it's a template that allows, it gets very into the IT of how you do searches and queries and link this data together. But the end result is it can spit out in real time. I can be a user, I could be an official, elected official. I don't have to be that GIS geek dealing with databases. We use something, I put it in the proposal, if you want to look it up later, it's called GUI, Graphic User Interface. So this helps translate what the database geeky people are keeping track of for you, so that you can come in and you can say, oh, I was tracking where those pipes are laid, you know, you have a gap in that sidewalk. Actually, how much is that going to cost? I can check who are the property values around there and how much are they generating. Otherwise, another example, applicant comes in, give me, because electronically, you're going to request it electronically, how much square footage, how much water runoff, what happens if, and how much traffic and the circulation, all of that can be data, and we can then spit out some of these graphic images so you can say, what if? The most important part of this is what if. If you have data and all you have to change is what if we made the setback wider? I want to see what it looks like. We can do that for you. We can show you graphically what this data is saying underneath it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll just have to send them questions 1 to 6. All right?
Yeah, the questions you weren't asked, you'll get in writing.
Okay, thank you.
Just so everybody has the same opportunity to
Oh,
ask the same
appreciate
questions.
Michelle, are you the Spanish speaker too?
I am. We actually have several folks who speak Spanish. Yes. And we use that, and not just for the written, but verbally, because everyone has a different accent in different Spanish-speaking communities. In Chamblee, for example, there's very different communities with different interests. So we just use that as an entry so that you can get your leaders in those communities to do that kind of work and talk with the communities what they need.
What is Kevin's role real quick? I mean, what is your...
Mr. Mayor, if I may, it's 8:40 now.
Okay, all right.
They're already about 10 minutes over.
Okay. All right.
Code enforcement and building inspection. So the organization chart shows Clark County, Lee, and Pond. So we'll be partners in setting up different divisions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good thing you have